Hey all, this is the next lesson in the photography class, and it does not share anything actually in your camera, but rather post-production. In this video we're going to review the Smart Brush tools that can be found in Photoshop Elements. This tool is not in the full version of Photoshop, but I will make sure that the full version of the Photoshop users have enough that they too can play with the techniques with this tool. And so here we go. The tool is, why do I have a little double arrow? The tool is right here, and if you right click on it, it looks like a gear with a brush. You see the Smart Brush tool and the Detailed Smart Brush tool. Now I'm going to show you quickly the difference between those by looking at our selection tools up here. If you look, you have the Quick Selection tool and you have the Selection Brush tool. On the Quick Selection tool, I'm going to use my bracket key to make it larger, and I'm going to just draw it here, and it's trying to find the edge where the sky is. It didn't quite do well. If I hold down my Alt key, you see it turns to a minus sign in there, and I can try to subtract away an area, and I thought the Alt key made it change back. It's not toggling. Must be this version of the program, but you can toggle back and forth here also. So it's working sometimes. So that is the Quick Selection tool, and I'm going to click Control D to deselect, and we've moved to the regular selection tool, which you can choose your brush and your bracket key to make them larger and smaller, and then just simply draw out here to select, and it doesn't try to find the edge and automatically go up to it. It works the same way, holding, I wish that would, those words would quit popping up there, and it works the same way. I hold the Alt key down and I can take away from this selection, but it doesn't automatically try to find the edges, and so that's the main difference between these two also, and we'll be looking at them a little bit later. So let's choose the Smart Brush tool, and you can see the familiar new selection, which just wipes everything out and starts at new, add to selection, and subtract from selection, and you can also find them right up here on the top bar. You can select some changes for your brush in here, and you can certainly play with that, and you have where you can refine the edge of the selection after you make it, and also invert it. But those are all lessons that are kind of in course 2. I'm not going to review all the details in those. I'm going to get straight into the meat of this. And here is the important one, this drop down menu, and you can see there is a sub menu that has a drop down menu with other options. We have all purpose, artistic, black and white, color, lighting, nature, photographic, portrait, reverse effects, special effects, textures, tint, and show all of them. Let's just stick with all purpose to begin with. The first one is blue skies. So if I want to make my skies bluer, I'm just going to select that, and it automatically found those edges for me just like that. And let's see, where's our layers? And here is our layers in the layer palette. Now this is what I want you to take away from this tool. Test each one of these as you have time to play, and then look at what it creates in the layers palette, because you can do this with your selection tools and the other options in Photoshop as well, or Photoshop Elements. In particular, if I double click on this here, I see that it is a gradient fill adjustment layer. And I can actually go in here if I wanted to, and maybe I don't want it this blue and I want to change it to you know, a different blue, a darker blue, you know, click around. You can change the gradient any way you want. There's a lesson in course 2 on gradients. We can't go into all these details, but then you see it also makes a layer mask with the white, which shows this gradient, and the black where it doesn't show it. So this can easily be recreated without even using this tool. This is where it helps with the Photoshop Elements users. You can, I'm going to go through several of these, and you can choose some of them and use the techniques in your program. So let's take this off, and I still have that selection. Let's just say I made it with my selection tool, and I can go here to the fill and gradient, and I can choose, oops, look at the gradient there I got. That's pretty funny. Don't really want that gradient. Let's see, I'm going to choose foreground to background. I'm going to open it up. I'm going to edit this, choose a blue color, and click OK. And you know, I could go back and really observe that other gradient to see what it did, or you know, play around with this one. I think it needs to be, I think this opacity marker might have been over here. But now I have this. Let's go back here to this one and see what else they did. You're going to note that they had a color burn I can't even think what that's called. Brain fart. Blending mode. That's it. So we're going to go back over here, and I'm going to change this one to a color burn blending mode and see what it does. See, I can take off my selection, deselect, and now that's what this one currently looks like. And Photoshop users could even do that. See, I just made the same thing, only I made it without the Smart tool. So your goal here is to go through these and observe what they do and learn from them these techniques for your own, so that you can do them without this little help tool. Let's click on brighter, and let's say we want to make the ocean brighter. It's a little dull. I'm going to click on it. I'm not going to go through and make my selections that perfect, because the goal is to go over here, I mean you would for your lesson, and see what it does before, after. Yeah, I really brightened that up, but what did it actually do? Double click on this gear and I see it moved the brightness up by 30. Well, I can do that. Look, you make your selection with your selection tool, go in here, brightness contrast, and you bump this up by 30. The same effect. That also tells you how to operate this. If you wanted to click on this adjustment layer and bump it and make it even brighter, you could do so. So that's what we learned from that. Let's deselect. What are these little thingies? See, I don't use this tool very often. Oh, look. You click on them and it comes back. Well, let's delete that adjustment and delete that adjustment. Those stay on there, obviously. Let's go ahead and delete all these. Go back to the original state. Okay, so the next one is contrast high. So I want the contrast to be high on my ocean. Ooh, I like that. And see, it teaches you what this does. And if you click on it, you see it's a brightness and contrast adjustment again. And you see the brightness is the same, but it's moved the contrast all the way up to 55. And if you don't like it, you can move it down or move it up, or just learn from it and create your own another time. So there's 3 things that the full version of Photoshop users can also do. This one here says darker. I'm not sure. Maybe we want to make our sky darker. Ooh, I kind of like that. Let's go over here and see. So it just took the brightness down by 30 on that one. This is how you can learn. But now green, let's see, I don't know if we can make our sky greener. It doesn't really work. It doesn't change it much because we don't have anything green in our photo. But if we double click on this, we can see it doesn't look like there's any changes here. But if you go under the drop down and change it to greens, you can see they bumped up the saturation on the greens by 50 and the lightness slider by 25. So if we wanted to do that on our own, we would make our selection and go to the hue and saturation, go down to the greens, and play with the saturation and the lightness. And we have done this in some of our previous lessons here already. Let's just delete all this fun stuff and see what the next one does. High contrast red filter. I have no idea. Oh my goodness, look what it does. And then you double click on it, and this is where you run into some problems. It says this adjustment layer was created in the full version of Photoshop and cannot be edited in Photoshop Elements. So if you have both programs, you could apply this in one and open it up in the other and check out what it's doing. So this is where they do allow some of the full version of Photoshop to peek into Elements. So not all of these are going to be learning lessons. Lipstick. Let's pretend I had somebody's lips right here, and let's see what it does. They have put just a solid color red layer with a soft light blending mode and a 50% opacity. So there you go. If you're trying to brighten up somebody's red lips, that's what you would do. You would create that layer with the hue saturation, and you would, not hue saturation, sorry, with the solid color, and you would choose red. And then you change this to a soft blending mode and then lower the opacity. So there we go. I just created the same thing without using the Smart Brush tool. And you can do that in the full version of Photoshop. Pearly whites. Let's pretend we got some teeth out here and see what it does. It's a solid color of this peachy color, 36, 20, 98 on your HSB, 249, 229, and 199 on your RGB if you wanted to recreate that exactly, and a soft light and 50% opacity. So this is what I'm going to encourage you to do, is don't just use these, learn what they do. I don't know what that was called, reverse black and white. So it made everything black and white but what I selected. And it did that. This is an adjustment layer that we cannot see in Photoshop Elements. But it also utilized a mask. Sepia Duotone. And for this, it used a gradient map. So if you wanted to make things sepia toned, you have in here very pearly whites, probably similar to the other one. Artistic. You have oil pastel, which It's under the darken mode and 100%, and I'm familiar that the oil pastel is in here somewhere. So it would be the same thing as making a selection and applying the oil pastel. I believe it's in here somewhere, and I'm not going to take time in the video to look for it, because the idea is to have you look. But these appear, oh, they're probably soft flat color. Ooh, it did almost like an action. Do you see that work? That was kind of cool. Okay, so, can you tell I have not played with all of these? What about color? If you want to make it chocolate, ooh, that's cool. Then you observe, and it's using that gradient map. So a lot of these are using gradient maps to change the colors. What about his, hers, hot pink, lime thyme, mellow yellow? I am almost certain each one of these is just a gradient map, and it sure is. Amazing what you can do with a gradient map to change the color of it all. So each one of these with color is a gradient map. There's one called black and white, and here's grayscale. And it's a gradient map. Look at that. So this is how you can learn, and that's a really interesting gradient map. Look at it if you want to recreate it in the full version of Photoshop. That is pretty cool. I actually kind of like it. I keep deleting it. The green filter, high contrast red, infrared. So I'm not going to go through all of these. I'm just going to show them. Lighting. What did that spotlight do? It is a brightness layer. That's all it is. Well, that's weird. Okay. High contrast, we kind of already did this. See? High contrast. Some of these we've already done. Not going to do them all again. Then we have nature. There's the blue skies again. It's probably the same. Flowery, snowfall. Can I put snowfall in here? Oh, it's just putting a filter on it. Oh, it's putting a pattern on it. Look at this. It's a pattern. And down here there are the pattern. So they think that that makes it look snowy. Interesting. Sunset. Can we turn this into a sunset? Oh, we did. We just turned it into a sunset. But look. Gradient fill adjustment layer with this is the gradient. You have to go back to course 2 to learn how to do gradients if you want to do this, and multiply blending mode and 75% opacity, and I just changed my photo into a sunset photo with one click. Is that not cool? But you can learn from this. And let's go in. I don't want to do them all. Photo graphic. You can make an old photo. It shows. It looks like it's running some sort of action. It's frozen a little bit. Oh, that's cool. It ran some sort of action. That one you can't copy. Well, you probably could. Shoebox photo, tin type, x-ray. So these are all fun to play with. Portrait. There's your pearly whites and everything. Spray tan. Reverse effects. I should make this larger so y'all could see it. Special effects. I am not going to go through all these and play with them. Some of these I have no desire to make a rainbow map out of my photo because they look funny. Textures, adding textures. Brick wall, let's see what it does. So basically it adds a pattern fill for whatever this one is, and a multiply blending mode and 70% opacity. These are all going to be texture things probably. Super, I wonder what this satin ripple does. Yep, texture. Duh, not sure why I would ever want to use that. Okay, and then we have tinting, which it looked like it ran some sort of action, I don't know. But I have a tutorial on tinting that I use instead. And then show all. So this is your smart brush, and then if you want to do the same thing under the detailed smart brush, you're going to see that it is all the same in here, but your brush is just going to work differently. See, it's not finding the edges, it's just going wherever you tell it to go, and you can use the bracket keys and make it larger or smaller. We should try one that is easier to see, like the blue sky, so you can see it's just going wherever I brush. So if you want just part of your sky to be blue, you could do that. If you want to add blue sky to the ocean, you can do that too. So, but it only goes where you, and then you got the same minus and plus. See, I'm minusing away from it. So that is this. So I think hopefully the full version of Photoshop Elementors, the full version of Photoshop users can also find some things that they've seen in this tutorial to use making their own adjustment layers. And your goal is to just show me some before and after photos, and of course make them realistic. Don't play and be silly like I did. Find an applicable reason to use them. And I look forward to seeing your play and hearing how much fun you had. And if you learn anything when you're in there playing, maybe some that I didn't review, come share with us in the forum what you learned while playing with this. And see you around.